Yo, I'm Lloyd Ruhl, aka MegaBlitzz. In today's video, we're going to be looking at the important cards, if not most of the important cards at least, that we're going to be losing in the rotation here in about a month. Now, if you're like me and you've kind of picked 3 or 4 decks that you've really come to enjoy, and a lot of those for me were in the F block and we're actually going to be losing in rotation, the last month has been kind of tough trying to figure out what I want to play going into post-rotation. So today we're going to be looking at some of the really important cards that we're going to be losing in the rotation and kind of just talking about them and just talking about why it's important that we're losing them and things like that. So let's jump right into it. Already starting off is the Lost Zone package. Now, for those that don't know, I've played Lost Zone Giratina pretty much up until Path to the Peak rotated. I earned about 350-ish championship points just solely off playing Lost Zone Giratina, and we're losing the Comfey with the flower selecting, being able to look at the top 2 cards, put 1 in the hand, 1 into the Lost Zone, Cramorant being able to attack for free once you get 4 in the Lost Zone, that Mirage Gate, if you get 7, you get the search deck for 2 basic energy cards that are different types, and then attach them to your Pokemon any way you like. And then, of course, we're losing that Sableye as well. With that Lost Man attack, if you have 10 or more cards in your Lost Zone, you put 12 damage counters on your opponent's Pokemon any way you like. This deck was really dominant for quite some time. This deck has seen a lot of different iterations. We've seen Turbo Lost Box, Lost Zone Kyogre, Lost Tina, Lost Radzard. This deck has seen so many different variants. It's actually kind of crazy to see it go. And a lot of people, this was kind of like their go-to deck for quite some time, mine being Lost Tina. And we're also losing Lost City as well. I kind of threw that in there with that Lost Zone package because it does actually do Lost Zone related things. When a Pokemon, either yours or your opponent's, gets knocked out, you put that Pokemon into the Lost Zone, but you discard all the attached cards. So we're also losing that. Lost City didn't really see play in Lost Box. You kind of saw more like Pokestop, Path to the Peak when that was in, which, rest in peace, Path to the Peak. I missed that card. Reprint Path to the Peak. Get Pheasantipity out of here. But Lost City is still pretty important, and these decks dominated for quite some time. Not so much anymore. With Pikachu EX kind of coming back, they had a bit of a resurgence, but not enough to really be as dominant as a lot of us would have hoped. Moving into the next one here, we got some of the kind of more item cards and utility cards that I would like to call them. We have Switch Card, switch your active Pokemon with one of your bench Pokemon, but it has to be a basic active, so you switch your basic active out into a benched Pokemon, and then you heal 30 damage. Very, very strong card. Seen a lot in decks like Miraidon, Clopterapagos, different Lost Box decks. A lot of deck, Raging Bolt plays this deck, or plays that card in their deck. Switch Card is a card that just kind of always felt like it was very good if you were playing just a basic attacking deck as opposed to playing Switch. Lost Vacuum, on the other hand, is a kind of more situational card. It's kind of like a 1 copy. You kind of put it in there for attack to be able to remove a stadium or maybe an item or something that's kind of going to be getting in your way that kind of could be a detriment to you in that matchup. So being able to just kind of use that, put it into the Lost Zone, put the other card into the Lost Zone, discarding a stadium or a tool that way is pretty helpful. We have a Hisuian Heavy Ball. Look at your prize cards, and then if you find a basic Pokemon there, you basically replace that basic Pokemon with Hisuian Heavy Ball, shove your prizes, and put them back. This was very good in decks that played like 1 copy of that V. So like Snorlax Stall played Pidgeot V. Being able to use that to get the Pidgeot V out so you don't eventually deck yourself, and you can kind of slowly deck out your opponent to win the game, is very important. Hisuian Heavy Ball was a card that always kind of, much like Lost Vacuum, and we're going to be talking about Forest Sealstone here too, you only really ever played 1 copy, but still very dominant and very kind of important, it felt like. Forest Sealstone is another card that is just absolutely insane. You attach it to your Pokemon V, and then during that turn, during any part of your turn, you may search your deck for a card and then put it into your hand. Now, this does use your V-Star ability, but with that being said, if you're playing a deck like Lost Box and you just have, you know, whatever, 1V, Raikou V, you put Forest Sealstone on it, you get to go find any 1 card you want out of your deck. Same with Snorlax Stall. In a lot of other decks that didn't really have V-Star abilities, Charizard probably being the most, I would say, relevant or dominant one for a long time, would just use Rotom V or Lumineon, put the Forest Sealstone on it, and they would use that as their V-Star ability to go find an extra card, which would open up the Charizard player to go Rare Candy into Pidgeot, Rare Candy into Charizard in the same turn. And then we have Trekking Shoes. Trekking Shoes is kind of an interesting card, mostly played in Raging Bolt right now, Turbo Moon, kind of seen a couple other, it's been in a couple other decks before. But you look at the top card of your deck, you can either choose to put it in your hand. If you don't, you discard that card, but then you have to draw and keep the next card. Now, this is very good for like turbo decks. Like I said, Raging Bolt plays a couple of these. Turbo Miraidon played a couple. There was a lot of decks that played Trekking Shoes to kind of just help you go through the deck a little bit quicker, and I really feel like Trekking Shoes is going to be missed. Trekking Shoes was a card that I really liked to play. There's so many funny moments where it's like Trekking Shoes into a Trekking Shoes into a Trekking Shoes. There actually is, I think, a clip by Azul GG where he ends up shoeing into a shoe, and then I think maybe gets the fourth one, but I know for sure gets 3. So definitely going to miss Trekking Shoes. Just kind of one of those cards that doesn't see as much play as it used to, but still very solid. Moving into the next one here, we got a couple other just interesting cards. We have a couple stadiums and some energies that I really wanted to talk about. Double Turbo Energy, really prominent and dominant in Lugia V-Star. Cloth Terapagos plays this card as well. Double Turbo Energy is a card that kind of just ended up being in a lot of decks. Even Miraidon EX played Double Turbo Energy, so you could use your Forest Seal Stone, which we're also losing, to go find the Double Turbo, to put it onto your Iron Hands, to be able to amp a little bit faster to take extra prize cards, which is kind of crazy. So Double Turbo is definitely going to be missed. Sure, it did 20 less damage, but it provided two colorless energy, which was kind of insane. So Lugia played this card, and it's going to be rotating. Like I said, Iron Hands and Miraidon played this card, and unfortunately Double Turbo is going to be rotating. And a couple other decks as well. Even Hisuian Zoroark V-Star, which it itself is also rotating. So just very sad to see Double Turbo go. I've pretty much the entire time I've been playing Pokemon at kind of a more of a competitive level, I've only ever known Double Turbo to exist, which is kind of crazy to see a lot of these cards leaving kind of for me, really. Got Gift Energy, provides 1 colorless energy. If the Pokemon this card is attached to is knocked out by damage from your opponent's attack, you draw until you have 7 cards in your hand. Very helpful in like the Lugia deck. Being able to just kind of have a hand size of like 1 or 2, and then they knock out your Cincino. You get to draw 5 cards is pretty clutch and is very helpful kind of in a pinch. Being able to just kind of refill your hand like that is very nice. V-Guard Energy is another one. Hasn't really seen play in Lugia lately, kind of with the fall of like Regidrogo and stuff like that. But being able to take 30 less damage from Pokemon V was actually really insane when they were so dominant at the time in the format. Like when Regidrogo V-Star was the top deck to be playing, V-Guard Energy was very helpful because then they couldn't copy Giratina V-Star's attack to just instant knock out your Lugia. Collapse Stadium. Each player has to discard their bench Pokemon until they have 4. Collapse Stadium was used a lot of the times for, okay, I want to get rid of this liability, whether it's Squawky Willy EX, Rotom V, I don't need it anymore, or Luminion or something like that, or even just a damaged Pokemon. You just play Collapse Stadium at the right time, discard it, remove the liability entirely. So, once again, hasn't really seen a lot of play, but still really kind of important of a stadium card that was around for quite some time and saw a lot of play. Pokestop. Once during each player's turn, that player might discard the top 3 cards of their deck. If you find any item cards in this way, you put those cards into your hand. Chenpao EX, Raging Bolt, Turbo Roaring Moon, Lost Box played this card. There are so many decks that played Pokestop, and this card is rotating. It was very good in decks that were very reliant on items. And honestly, a lot of people have, that was kind of the big talk for a while, was like, does Raging Bolt live? Does these turbo fast decks live without Pokestop and being able to find all these items? We'll have to see. I think it'll be fine. Japan's kind of given us a lot of results, but Pokestop is going to be leaving, not really being able to kind of just churn through the deck and going to be hitting those items and getting extra ones. I actually have a quite fond memory of Pokestop. The first time I ever made top cut in a League Cup, I was playing Lugia V-Star, and I was really far behind, and I rolled my opponent's Pokestop, and I discarded 2 Archeops and an Ultra Ball, and then was able to find myself my Lugia V-Star, Summoning Star, and do a bunch of stuff and take knockouts and actually come back to win the game, and proceed in top cut, which was kind of insane. Just Pokestop's not really supposed to benefit like that for Lugia players, but it worked out for me, so I will miss Pokestop, I think. Moving on to the next one here, we got a couple other kind of supporting Pokemon plus Raikou, I guess. So Rotom V has that instant charge ability. Once during your turn, you may draw 3 cards, but your turn ends. Rotom V was very popular in a lot of decks. It's seen play in Miraidon lately. It was the draw engine itself for Pidgeot Control and for especially Snorlax Stall. A lot of decks played Rotom V for that early game draw, Charizard, and then they would attach their Forest Sealstone to it and kind of just go that way. So Rotom V is definitely a card that I think will be missed. Being able to just draw those cards and have access to that draw engine was kind of insane. Lumineon V is going to be another one. Luminous Sign, when you play this card from your hand to your bench, you may search your deck for a supporter card, reveal it, and put it into your hand. There have been so many times where I go play Lumineon from my hand, find boss for game, and win. Or Lumineon, find Iono to try to come back and make a huge comeback to kind of get back and win the game, right? So Lumineon is going to be one of those cards that was just very helpful, being able to just, in a pinch, find the supporter you need when you need it, or even to just help you set up early game. There have been many times where players would go Lumineon V, go find Arven, Buddy Poffin, TM Evo, evolve a bunch of stuff, pass, right? So Lumineon V is definitely one of those cards that I think, and Rotom V were very dominant for support Pokemon kind of throughout their time here. Raikou V is not really a support Pokemon, but just saw a lot of play in a lot of different decks. Saw play in Miraidon a lot. It's seen play in different versions of Lost Box. It's seen play in Lugia V-Star at certain points as well. So Raikou V just being the fast lightning attacker, has the ability Fleet Foot. If it's in the active spot, you get to draw a card. It has pretty solid damage. Lightning type weakness is, or lightning typing is really good, and having fighting type weakness is pretty strong, especially because fighting types aren't very strong right now. So Raikou V going to be also leaving. Then we have the Archeops, the kind of energy acceleration engine that we saw in Lugia V-Star with that Primal Turbo. Once during your turn, you might search your deck for up to 2 special energy cards, attach them to one of your Pokemon, and then shuffle your deck. So Lugia trying to get the Archeops in the discard pile, use their V-Star ability to put them into play, and then just turbo a bunch of energies. We are going to be losing that package as well. So any decks, even with Lugia V-Star rotating, you still can't turbo a bunch of special energies into play anymore, regardless if Lugia was leaving or not. So Archeops and the turbo acceleration will be leaving. Kirlia with the refinement package. This is a pretty interesting one. Gardevoir has been around for quite some time. We lost Shining Arcana in the previous rotation to this, and now we're losing its draw engine, right? Refinement is once during your turn, discard a card from your hand in order to use his ability, and then you get to draw 2 cards. So very helpful being able to get the energies in the discard pile. Very strong to be able to just kind of find the pieces you need when you need them. But we are going to be losing this card. So Gardevoir is kind of in an interesting position where it's going to have to become like Turbo Gardevoir again and really just have to power through the deck and play things like Brilliant Blender, apparently, to put a bunch of energies in the discard pile to be able to rare candy into your Gardevoir and then Psychic Embrace them to your Drifloon to be able to hit for big numbers again. So a little bit more of a clunky, kind of fast, I guess, Gardevoir deck that we're probably going to have to deal with. But losing this refinement is kind of crazy. Like I said, a lot of these cards for me I've played with since I kind of came back to Pokemon 2-3 years ago, and now they're kind of rotating. So it's kind of interesting to look at these decks and be like, wow, we're losing all these cards. So goodbye to Refinement Kirlia as well. Moving on to the next one here, we got some of the V-Stars. We actually lose all of the V-Stars, but I want to talk about kind of what I felt was the 4 most dominant V-Stars. There actually is a 5th one, but we'll get into that one a little bit later, because it kind of hasn't been as dominant lately. Regidrogo V-Star was a card that was just bulk. For the longest time when it came out in Silver Tempest, it sucked. It saw play in Arceus Regidrogo sometimes. But once we started getting all these pieces like Giratina V-Star and Dragapult EX and Teal Mask Ogerpon being able to just accelerate energies into play and then move them to the Regidrogo, this deck really became quite the powerhouse. And we are going to be losing that Regidrogo V-Star, so no more Legacy Star, discard the top 7, put 2 cards from your discard pile back into your hand. That's gone. No more Apex Dragon choosing from a list of 10 different attacks in your discard pile. It's all gone. And Regidrogo kind of ran the format for about 3 to 4 months there, and it was kind of crazy. Giratina V-Star, I talked about it a little bit in the Lost Zone part. I really liked Lost Tina. And Giratina V-Star was a very strong attacker, not only in itself with Lost Zone package, but also in Regidrogo V-Star. It was a really strong attack to be able to have in there, along with a couple other V-Stars that I didn't mention, like Hisuian Goodra V-Star is another one that was really strong and powerful in that Regidrogo package. We also had Origin 4 Palkia V-Star, Subspace Swells, 60 plus, does 20 damage for each bench Pokemon, but it has that ability Star Portal, which was once during your turn, during your turn, you may attach 3 basic water energies from your discard pile to your water Pokemon any way you like. So we would see like Goldango play this card, right? Play a 1/1 Palkia line plus the Radiant Greninja to be able to just put the energies on there, take a quick early prize knockouts on some smaller single prize Pokemon, and just really having like a nice backup attacker. And we've seen Palkia Dusknoir. Palkia V-Star was played with the Inteleon in Drizzile Shady Dealings package that also rotated like before this rotation. So just a lot of different things that Palkia has kind of had. Palkia has really just kind of been around. It's had so many different iterations, and Palkia has really just kind of stayed as a good card its entire time it's existed in the standard format. And I'll be honest, I'm ready for this card to leave. I'm tired of Palkia V-Star. I'm ready for it to go. But a card I'm not ready to see leave is Lugia V-Star. Now, Lugia V-Star is the deck that I played mostly after Lost Tina, and even before sometimes, in competitive and just casual tournaments. I really liked Lugia. It's actually the reason my mascot here on YouTube is what it is. I was playing Lugia so much, I really loved it, and when I wanted to come up with a logo for the channel, I was like, Lugia just makes sense. My very first video ever is talking about how I felt Single Strike Lugia at the time was the best deck to climb the TCG Live ranked ladder with. So like very first video I ever put out, and it was about Lugia, right? So I'm really going to miss Lugia. It's Tempest Dive, Summoning Star, being able to just turbo a bunch of energies into play. I really am going to miss it. Speaking of which, these are kind of just the rest of the cards. We got a Rangaroo V, being able to just kind of search deck for some tool cards. Saw playing like Cloth Terapagos a lot. We have Irida, being able to search deck for a water and an item card. Once again, kind of mostly play with like Palkia and stuff. We have Team Yell's Cheer. You're able to put any 3 combination of Pokemon or supporters, except for Team Yell's Cheer, back into your deck. This card was extremely good in Pidgeot Control and Snorlax Stall, being able to kind of just put things like Misfortune Sisters and Airy and different supporters back in, and then you Palpat Team Yo's Cheer back in, and then you kind of just recycle through those. We have Thornton here. Choose a basic Pokemon in play, switch it with one of your basic Pokemon in your discard pile. Everything that is on the Pokemon in play gets transferred to the one that you're switching in from your discard pile. Very cool, just kind of opening up some pretty neat plays that could happen throughout the game. Didn't see a lot of play, but when it did see play, it was very kind of just like a 1 copy of card, but I thought it was important enough to kind of put it in here. We Misfortune Sisters. I'm going to miss this card. I love Misfortune Sisters. Being able to look at the top 5 cards of your opponent's deck, discard any number of item cards you find there. I've had so many good memories of just looking at the top 5 against like a Raging Bolt player, and I hit their 2 switch cards plus their Prime Catcher, and then I just discard them and they concede right on the spot. Feels incredible. We're also going to be losing Silene. Flip 2 coins, put a number of cards to the equal number of heads that you get from your discard pile back on the top of your deck. Once again, kind of mostly played in like Stall and a couple other decks, played it every once in a while, but going to be missing a lot of these cards here. A lot of just kind of supporters that have kind of been around for a bit, got used in different, iterations of other decks' lives, but going to be leaving overall. Now, this is kind of the page of my just personal misses, the things that I'm going to miss the most. I already talked about Lugia V-Star, just kind of was the channel mascot. Snorlax Stall was a deck that I've played almost exclusively for the last 5 to 6 months. I've loved Snorlax. I got a little Snorlax plushie on my book bag here. I've really come to enjoy playing Snorlax, especially Snorlax Stall, and I really am going to miss this deck. And that's kind of where I was talking about the cards in the decks that I've been playing are kind of leaving, right? I played mostly Lugia and Snorlax Stall. And I played a lot of Arc piles, and Arceus V-Star was a deck that really opened up for so many different decks to be existing. Arc Tina, Arceus Superior, Arc Vulpix, Arceus Aerodactyl, Arceus is just a card that has been around for so long. Trinity Nova, being able to just slam 3 basic energies right onto your Pokemon V any way you like. Starbirth, which is V-Star power during a turn, search your deck for up to 2 cards and put them into your hand. So you get to look for 2 cards that you want. I have so many fond memories of just going Judge Path my opponent and then win the game from there. Duraludon, Arceus Dumbreon with Duraludon and Umbreon, Arceus Flying Pikachu. I played Arceus Superior with Slacking V and Path to the Peak to just like, and Spiritomb as well to kind of just like punch for big numbers. I really am going to miss Arceus V-Star and Snorlax and Lugia for so many different reasons. So I really want to just throw this in here real quick, just kind of my personal misses. And yeah, I really am going to miss these 3 cards. But I think I have found decks that I will play post-rotation that do remind me of Stall. And it's not Walls. Next page. This is going to be the last page here. Radiant Pokemon. Now, Radiant Pokemon are very strong, single prize Pokemon. You can only play 1 in your deck. And these are the 4 that I felt were the most relevant kind of throughout the entire time of Radiant Pokemon existing. Radiant Alakazam having that Painful Spoons ability, being able to move 2 damage counters around on your opponent's bench. So if your opponent's one Pokemon has 2 damage counters, you can kind of move them to a different one. Really opened up for decks like Dragapult to really be able to manipulate damage counters and being able to just take extra prizes when they weren't really supposed to. Has a pretty strong attack too. Mind Ruler 20 times. Does 20 damage for each card in your opponent's hand. Then we have Raiden Hisuian Sneasler. I felt like this is probably the second one. The third most important. Really seen it like Cloth Terapagos and stuff like that. Making it so they put 2 more damage counters on their poison Pokemon in between turns. It's really all it's used for. Helping take easy, cheeky donk prizes before your opponent takes their first turn. Stuff like that. And then, unfortunately, second place has to go to Radiant Charizard. Radiant Charizard is a really strong, just Radiant Pokemon, single prize attacker, has an ability Excited Heart. This Pokemon's attacks cost 1 less for each prize card your opponent has taken. So, if your opponent's taking 4 prize cards, you're punching for 250 for 1 fire energy, knocking so many things out, really helping skew that prize trade. Radiant Charizard saw play in Lost Zone Box, it's seen play in Charizard EX, it's seen play in Regidrogo, it's seen play in so many different things, and I really feel like Radiant Charizard was a very strong Pokemon, being able to hit that just high number as the game progressed. But first place has to go to Radiant Greninja, and the reason for this is because this card has seen play in so many decks. Lost Zone Box, Gardevoir for the draw engine, anything with Palkia, be able to Star Portal, put energies onto it. Radiant Greninja literally has been in almost everything. Goldengo, I can't even think to name all the decks that Radiant Greninja has been a part of, because that Concealed Cards ability, discard energy card from your hand to draw 2 cards, plus Moonlight Shuriken, discard 2 energy cards from this Pokemon. It does 90 damage to 2 of your opponent's Pokemon. Chen Pao played this card, so you could just like take quick 2 prize knockout on your opponent's 2 baby single prize Pokemon on their bench. You're up 2 prizes, and if they knock out Greninja, they take 1 prize card. Great. Radiant Greninja is by far the most single-handedly best Radiant Pokemon that came out of all these, and probably the strongest single prize Pokemon that I can think of, honestly, and I really am sad to see it go. But that's going to do it all for these cards that are going to be leaving here in this rotation. So let's jump right in to that outro. Alright, that's going to do it all for today's video. Let me know down in the comments below what cards you're most sad to see leave here in the 2025 rotation. It's going to be happening in just about a month. I really want to hear your guys' thoughts and kind of just what cards you're going to be missing, what cards that you can't wait to see even leave. So yeah, just let me know. And while you're down there, if you're enjoying the content I've been making stuff for the channel, don't forget to leave a like, smash that subscribe button. I would appreciate it. And if you want to support the channel even further, you can become like these great, awesome people you see here and become a channel member here on the YouTube channel as well, and joining the Trainer Club. And of course, while you're down there, also make sure to follow me on Twitter and join the MegaBlitzz Pokecove Discord. But let's get it all for today's video. So I'll see you all in the next one. Peace!